Welcome back. The Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, the BMA, Dr. Michael Masiapato, is embarking on intensified law enforcement operations as the festive season reaches its peak. He is expected to lead a high-level oversight visit to the Ficksburg and Maseru ports of entry before moving to the busy Lebombo borderline. The BMA says the operations aim to curb illegal crossings, strengthen border security, and ensure smoother movement for holiday travelers. This comes as authorities anticipate a surge in traffic and heightened criminal activity across key border points. Let's speak now to the BMA spokesperson, Mmemme Mogotsi, about the state of readiness and what South Africans can expect from these festive season interventions. Mmemme, good afternoon and thank you for your time. We'll get to the visits to the various ports of entry that are going to be a hive of activity, but I would like us to recap on the operation that happened, I think 2 days ago at the OR Tambo International Airport, the interception of those Ethiopian and Bangladeshi nationals. Just talk to me about what led to that operation and the success in as far as that interception. You've characterized it as showing modus operandi that is associated with human trafficking.
Yes, good afternoon to Lassie and good afternoon to the viewers. As you know, that the Border Management Authority has intensified its efforts in terms of security at all ports of entry. We want to combat all irregular migration, transnational organized crime, particularly this festive period. And we are on high alert. So what happened is that there was a flight coming in, and upon arrival, it was the Ethiopian Airlines flight. We realized that 14 Ethiopian nationals that comprised of 5 males, 9 females, arrived at the port, but they were in transit. So they were in transit, traveling to a neighboring state, but also coming back to South Africa. So that movement particularly, we were able to flag it as very suspicious as to why would you transit through South Africa and then come back to South Africa. So we conducted our investigations, and then we intercepted all those 14 individuals, and this is a modus operandi that is particularly used, and due to our experience in the port and the work that has been doing in terms of our passenger analysis, we were able to flag this as maybe a suspicious human trafficking activity. We were able to intercept those individuals, and then in a separate incident as well, 16 Bangladeshi males arrived from an Ethiopian Airlines flight. As they were arriving, Chulas at the airport, there are lanes for South African passport holders. Yeah. There are also lanes for foreign nationals passport holders. Those Bangladeshi travelers were trying to blend themselves in the maze of South African travelers. So through profiling, we were able to separate them from the queue, and then we had to refer them to our Border Law Enforcement Office for secondary investigation. When we conducted the investigation, these travelers, their documentation was confirmed to be fraudulent. Their visas were fraudulent. Yeah. And when we inquired further, their intentions in terms of traveling was just inconsistent with what normally, is categorized as legitimate travel. Yeah. So we were able to just intercept those, and then we were just suspicious as to is this a human trafficking activity, but our investigations are continuing, and we were able to report them back to where they were coming from with the same flight that they arrived with. Yeah.
Both incidents, what do they say about the seriousness with which airlines, and you don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, because I can only imagine, different airlines treat these matters differently. But I suppose you would be able to start making commentary about how seriously these airlines, some of them, take our migration processes and prescripts in the country. And I'll tell you why I ask the question. If you are traveling to the United Kingdom, and I don't know, you're traveling on SAA, chances of you boarding that flight without your papers being checked at source are just slim to none. You're going nowhere unless the airline has satisfied itself that when we land, you'll be in good order when you arrive at Heathrow.
Yes, Tulas, you're absolutely correct. You know, we have a good partnership with the airlines, and it is our continuous employ to them to say, let us do our due diligence in terms of just checking, the documentation of the various travelers, because you know that, like, in terms of the immigration laws, and these are like international laws, where an airline that transport a traveler that is denied entry must bear the cost of traveling of that passenger back to the country of origin. And not only that, they are fined an amount of 15,000 per person who is denied entry by that receiving country. So we are now pleading with the airlines to say, let's work together. Let's do our analysis in terms of, these group travels especially, so that we are able to just interrogate purpose of travel, why are travelers, what is the destination, how are these travelers traveling, and so that we are able to just curb, human trafficking, human smuggling. It is our responsibility, all of us, to ensure that, our border systems are protected. And with the BMA in the space, we have heightened our operations now this festive season, and we will not allow anyone to take chances and undermine our security protocols.
Yeah. In fact, say a bit more about that then. You are undertaking these intensified law enforcement operations at various borders. Why the focus on borders such as Ficksburg, Maseru, and Lebombo? In the bigger scheme of things, why do these points of entry and exit matter?
Yes, we aim to heighten our multi-layered approach so that we ensure safety, we ensure efficient, well-coordinated border management during this festive season. But also, Tilasizo, you'd remember during the press conference that was addressed by Commissioner Masiapato last week Sunday, where in terms of our traveler movement patterns indicated that Basotho nationals continue to be the nationalities that are dominating in terms of interceptions. So our aim is to look at the areas within the movement in the Lesotho, the airport, the port of entry in the Lesotho area where the Basotho travel, because we want to ensure that we inspect the vulnerable areas that continue to pick this high movement of Basotho that are being intercepted year on year. So we want to ensure a well-coordinated, high-traffic, festive movement, but we also want to curb vulnerabilities of these areas that are, providing a problem for us. So at this point, due to that area, we want to just focus in those ports of entry, starting with it. The commissioner will be conducting oversight visits there. He'll be doing full operational assessments to ensure that we address all the emerging challenges and want to provide direct support to the personnel that is on the ground. But the main focus is on the vulnerable areas to see what measures can be employed also to curb those areas.
Lastly, Mmemme, what does it take for you to be able to do all of that? Given that we are reporting that we expect a surge of travelers to all these ports of entry, such as your Beitbridge, your Lebombo, Ficksburg and Maseru, what does it take to do all of these things, facilitate efficient travel by travelers who, those who hold documents and basically are able and want to, to be swift in terms of movement through the border crossing, but also being able to detect fraudulent documents that are irregular in terms of how they were stamped into the country, overstaying documents, but also curb opportunities for corruption. It sounds like a lot to do while maintaining the efficiency, especially for an agency like yours, without the requisite personnel and other resources.
Yes, Tulasizo, you know, we are enhancing our law enforcement visibility. And this does not only mean that the BMA is the only one that will be operating. We are also deploying support resources from the South African Police Services, the South African National Defence Force, the South African Revenue Services, all the other partners of the metro that we have engaged on. So what it means is that we're integrating our joint operations with other law enforcement partners. We're increasing our surveillance in vulnerable and high-risk areas. And all those measures, they form part of our commitment to ensure that we must facilitate only legitimate movement during this period.
All right. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, you were going to finish your point?
Yes, and I was saying that you'd remember that we had embarked on partnerships in the Western Cape government. We embarked on a partnership with the Western Cape government together with the city of Cape Town, where we have some of their law enforcement resources deployed to our ports of entry, Cape Town International Airport in particular. We've also adopted that model for the Gauteng ports of entry, or Tambo International, whereby we have requested resources from the Gauteng government to say, can you deploy them to come and assist our officials? And that helps a lot when you blend new officials in the environment. They are extra vigilant, but the BMA is on high alert, and we are not taking any chance in terms of border security.
All right, let's leave it there for this afternoon. Thank you for your time. That's Mmemme Mogotsi, who speaks on behalf of the Border Management Authority, the BMA.